Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, with something weird. Just a thought. New thing I want to start doing. It's not meant to be every week, every other week, or whatever. It's just whenever I feel like it. It's therein lies the freedom to just do a quick video and get out a few thoughts, and we'll see if it catches, right? But I want to talk a little bit about the original '78 film. Now that Halloween Ends is probably in most of our collections by now, and we pretty much have every Halloween film there is to offer, and either you're a huge fan of the latest trilogy, or perhaps you're like me and your heart lies more with Rob's two films and really regrets that there was never a third piece. Anyways, another conversation for another day, I guess. But the new trilogy is there nonetheless, and it does offer some interesting things, some good things. But the Halloween '78, I was listening to Isaac Weishaupt the other day. He did a film analysis on Halloween. He does this thing called Occult, Symbolism, and Pop Culture podcast. I'm going to drop a link down below and to the Halloween film analysis if you're curious just to check it out. It's not your typical standard review or anything like that. He's looking at things from purely an occult sort of symbolism. But he does do a pretty good analysis on the film, and he does offer up a few interesting observations that that my mind sort of expanded upon the other night, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. You know, regardless of which direction we go, really, Michael's identity, his true origin, it does really still lie hidden. In spite of Rob's efforts to pull the veil away a little bit, or this latest trilogy. No light can be great enough to ever really completely and absolutely satisfy any of us, I think, in terms of who is this enigma, this force of nature, as John referred to it often in this first film. And why does he latch on to Laurie? Well, Isaac points out, he makes a few suggestions that are interesting. Number one, I'm just going to ramble on through them real quick. I never really thought about it before, but Michael, there is a bit of a catalyst moment when Michael's in the house, and this is the '78 film there, it's still in the beginning, when Laurie drops the keys off at the O'Meyer's house. Of course, Michael's standing just inside the door and watches her, and of course he sees Tommy Doyle out there. And then boom, there's this weird attachment. And we don't know why exactly. We're not given anything. I mean, the whole sibling robbery thing doesn't come up to the '81 film, right? The sequel, which is freaking awesome. And so I guess I never really thought about it before, but if you want to pinpoint a moment where Michael and Laurie meet ever so slightly, it's on the steps of the old Myers house. But he also goes into some conversation about the Rabbit and Red matchbook in the car when Nurse Marion and Loomis go to pick up Michael from the prison, of course, in the middle of a rainstorm. And of course, all the inmates are out and about. And of course, Loomis gets out of the car and he goes to, make his call or whatever, and she's in, and of course we know the rest, right? But he points on an interesting observation that a little earlier when they're in the car driving, the camera focuses in tightly on the Rabbit and Red, and it's like no real answer as to why. There's no explanation later on outside of just the notion when Pleasance is making the call from the phone booth. And I don't remember phone booths being out in the middle of nowhere when I was a kid growing up, but neither here or there. And the trains going by and everything. He sees the truck there, the abandoned truck, right? And he sees the Rabbit and Red matchbook on the ground. And some of this just really got me to thinking. Of course, Isaac points out this, Rob, of course, will jump on it, and he'll create his own little thing about, Michael's mom being a stripper at the Rabbit and Red, and this, of course, where the matchbook comes from. Although knowing where she is, a matchbook seems a bit classy for them. But anyways, he points out the implication that perhaps maybe Nurse Marion is a stripper on the side. And this is why Donald Pleasance, or Loomis, he happens to look down and notices the matchbook. And he sort of kind of just gives a not so accepting look, you know, almost as if to say, oh, you're a stripper. But it's so quick and fleeting, probably goes right by most. But it didn't go by him, and he picked up on it, and I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And it got me to thinking, how much of a conversation really was had in the development of the script, and as the script started to, you know, move on to the screen. Up till now, I've always been under the assumption that the sibling rivalry thing was not John's idea, but came much later into the sequel, in developing for the sequel, which he did not want to direct. We all know this stuff, right? But on the 4K, there are deleted scenes from the TV cut. There's one in particular, which I know most of you have probably seen, and that is where Loomis is in there having his discussion with those two about, you know, why is it that he is going to or not be moved to a maximum security facility. And then afterwards, Michael will go to pay his respect to Michael and remind him that although he's fooled everyone, he has not fooled him. It's a great deleted scene. But later on, there's another deleted scene. We get to go into his room years later as he has escaped that night. We're back in that room again in the deleted scene. And when they close the door, written on the back of the door is sister. And I thought to myself, I thought that idea wasn't developed to later. So apparently, at least when they were filming the scenes for the TV cut, because they needed to, you know, get that runtime either down or up to, you know, snuff or whatever, where it needed to be. That struck me. And that struck me because I've always assumed the whole sister-sibling rivalry stuff came after the first film. It was developed as an afterthought. And yet this deleted scene shows that this was a conversation. They just, for whatever reason, decided it would have been better. Apparently, it would have been better to just keep it more shrouded in mystery. Why is Michael, you know, maybe is that just that quick interact? Not that there's a real interaction, but when she comes up to drop the keys off, maybe Michael, thinking to myself, maybe Michael's just pissed that he senses he's going to lose his house because the realty is trying to sell it, and he may not have a home anymore. Maybe that's why he lashes out at the Strode family, at Lori, and maybe this is why he goes bonkers. He just wants to just rest in his home, unmolested, you know, not bothered or whatever. And so my thoughts just go, and my thoughts, you know, even went to wondering, what if Michael actually was Nurse Marion's son? Maybe she had an illegitimate child. Maybe she gave him up for adoption. You know, she does make the point in the car with Loomis, when Loomis refers to Michael as it, and she calls him out on it and says, do you think we can refer to him instead of it? And he says, you know, if you'd like, or whatever. And she's like, your compassion is overwhelming. And you know, and that's interesting. She didn't have to say that. And so maybe I'm reading really far in, and let's read in a little bit further. What if the dead mechanic in that abandoned truck was the guy she had sex with, who was his father? Now, I know what you're thinking and saying out loud. This is ludicrous. This is insane. Look, we've got how many freaking movies and how many strands of different thought. I just thought it was interesting. Just thinking about, I guess the thing that you can't explain is, how does the matchbox, the rabbit and red matchbox, end up out of that state vehicle and on the ground near the truck? when you're in a car and get out of a car, things just don't pull with you. I don't know. Anyways, it's just, so that in of itself, the whole sister on the back of the door, seeing, of course, his room destroyed, and and then being told too. And Rob put this. This was in the deleted scene in Rob's movie, but it's spoken out loud that Michael had set the prisoners or the mental patients free. He let them go out, probably to create chaos. Which, if you go into the first Gordon Green's Halloween film, there's so much. I'm not going to get into it now, but there is so much they could have done that would have been so much better. But the idea, I think, one of the missed opportunities was having those mental patients. And I know they sort of try to capitalize on one of them in terms of kills, but the fact that you got these mental patients, man, just running amok in this town, man, you could have had so much fun with that. Anyways, back to Halloween '78. Michael's origins. I think you don't need all the other films. I think there's some interesting things going on in the first original film that can light up your imagination and just kind of get you to think a little bit and wonder, where did he come from? I mean, whose kid really was he? What caused him to snap initially with Judith? I don't know. A lot of interesting, free-ranging thoughts, I guess. And listening to Isaac's podcast, he sort of pointed out some interesting observations, and it just kind of got you to wondering how much conversation was there in terms of the thought process and the background and really, what was left, I guess, on the proverbial cutting room floor in terms of just conceptually ideas, in terms of the full scope and nature of Michael and his origin, in terms of '78, and not the film that will, the sequel that will come. So anyways, I don't know. Just throw a few interesting thoughts out there. I find interesting, at least. It is interesting that Marion isn't for 78, 81 H2O kills. So her character, I mean, she's been in quite a few films. And then also just to the whole sister on the door thing's kind of neat. But revisiting on 4K last night again, it's just and now I just got ends. I just got this in the mail, so my new trilogy is complete, and I think I'm gonna put this on tonight and check this out, and revisit this. I did enjoy this. The original trilogy is my favorite one of the new trilogy. It's just different, man. I don't know. The ending was, I don't know, not exactly what I wanted, but the very, very, very end. But much of the film and its story, I really liked. I really dug. So yeah, the dead mechanic, Marion, the young Michael Myers. Any connection between those three? That's an interesting strand of thought to, or a little rabbit trail to rabbit, pun intended, I guess, to think about. But what an incredible film. Just reviewing it or revisiting it last night and just thinking to myself, what an absolutely, and Roger Ebert, man, he gets a lot of crap from horror fans for crapping on horror movies, but he gave Halloween a pretty dang good review back in the day, and that's kind of neat, as well as Last House on the Left. So anyways, there's my first something weird, just a thought. And film is subjective, right? So we can have fun with it. Really, at the end of the day, we're never gonna get what we really want, and should we? I guess is the question. Anyways, we'll end it here, and as always, I'm going to be a little bit different on this one. We'll just end here with Go Dogs.